So, yesterday I had a pretty significant panic attack. I've had panic attacks my whole life, and at first it seemed like there was no root cause. Um, but as I came out of it, my partner helped me sort of talk about what got me there and what my feelings were. And I realized that a lot of the feelings that I was having were old wounds regarding like loneliness and fear of death and even just fear of life. Um, Today's the next day, and I was just journaling about the process again and really putting words to the feelings I was having and how my fears that I was feeling are in fact generational. How in my mom and in my dad, I can see those fears and how strong they were in them, and how much of their lives have been sort of orchestrated to coping with those feelings and coping with the fact that they haven't had a safe space or a safe partner to process those feelings, much less feel them in the first place. um I say this, like, when I have panic attacks, it looks kind of crazy. I'm sobbing, I'm like borderline yelling, I'm just uncontrollable. And a lot of people, a lot of white people, especially with their emotions, don't allow themselves to get into an uncontrollable state because control is kind of the backbone of their identity, being in control of themselves. And the culture around the way we raise our children has a lot to do with don't cry unless you have a reason, don't cry unless you have a physical reason, unless you're bleeding. um, and I'm just speaking from my experience, but it's just I'm being made aware of how repressed my parents' emotions were, and how, my dad has his own fear of death because his parents also didn't have the right verbiage or cultural language to um, put ease into his heart or to alleviate those feelings. So they just slowly build, and he never is able to grow too close to anything because he doesn't know how to process the strong feelings of losing it, so to say, or detachment, when death comes with anything, whether it's actual physical death or just change in life. It's like his coping mechanisms, which are drinking or going out or smoking or doing very brute things, it seems like his coping mechanisms are an arm wrestling maneuver for his strong emotions. So the stronger the emotions he's avoiding, the stronger his coping mechanisms have to be. And so when I'm just reflecting on how strong my own emotions are, and how my intention for a long time has been to break generational curses in my own family tree, if the curse is a fear of death, or if the curse is an avoidance of such strong emotions, then when they come, instead of feeling ashamed for being in such an emotional state, I can have grace for myself because I have to feel all of the feelings that my generational line has had to avoid for so long, because they haven't had, again, the safe space to challenge the thinking and the feelings that get them into a place of avoidance or a place of coping, strong coping. So it makes sense that, I'm saying this now to my phone because I want other people to think, when they have strong emotions, that they, instead of thinking that something is wrong with them, as I have previously felt, this could possibly be our opportunity to feel those strong emotions, to process them, to grieve all of the things that our four people were not able to grieve or able to even feel or even recognize. This is how I feel about a thing, because emotions have never been validated in a way that material success has. You know, like there's no space and time there. It's just, I don't have the way to articulate it right now, but baseline, bottom line, there's something to say about how we collectively feel so strongly, and it feels like these emotions don't belong to me, but I have them in my heart. You know, like I am a very happy and grateful person, so why do I feel so scared or alone or disappointed in myself? You know, where are these negative emotions coming from, and why am I the one who carries them? I think the reason is that I am the one who's capable of processing them and letting them go, and therefore reverberating that healing back up the generational line. So to say is that everyone who experiences panic disorders or just emotional disorders, it's not that something is wrong with you, it's just that you carry the opportunity to finally process things that have been avoided for generations. It's not that you are too much. It's not that you're doing anything wrong just because nobody else processes these emotions this way. It's kind of responsible to lose your shit every once in a while, because avoiding losing your shit is how you pass it on to the next generation, whether that's your own children or whether that's a stranger in the streets that you happen to treat unkindly. There's opportunity in leaning into the scary feelings, as far as if you feel afraid or sad or disappointed or alone or anything that just doesn't feel good. You know, we're always chasing this sort of form of pleasure and feeling accomplished or validated, and when that doesn't come, what are we doing to cope with the absence of that? And is that a true reflection of how we feel about life? Or are we just trying to make up this sense of purpose when really our purpose is to feel the sadness that our family has not allowed to be felt? And it's not even, you know, like that fear of death that I have that comes up for me in my everyday life, when I'm able to reach my gratitude and through what I have given myself as far as resources go, spiritually, I don't believe in the finality of death. I believe in the wholeness of the universe, and at the very least, my spirit goes and is held somewhere beautiful and peaceful. It's not a scary or empty or lonely thing the way that my life has sort of been educated in that way. Like that's what I believe about death, is that it's not this final cut and dry absence of life. It's a continuation and a rebirth, and it's hard to understand both scientifically and spiritually, but it's more that the door's open rather than the door's closed. You just can't process it materially, and when we're so involved in material things, it's hard to accept that. So either way, I know that that belief doesn't belong to me, but it comes to me in such a strong wave because genetically this fear has been passed down on to me. My ancestors have always had their meaning rooted in materialism, and that's why their efforts to attain land or attain people or attain money, material things, has always been so strong because their value was in this one life. We even went by the saying of you only live once, YOLO, for so long. That was like kind of a theme in my childhood for a long time, you know, a collective theme, and that might have skewed the way a lot of young people grew into the world of thinking, oh, if I only live once, then I have to attain and achieve so many things so quickly because the time is running out. I mean, we're always talking about time as this finite thing. You only have so many seconds if you're lucky enough to live to be old. it's still not enough. But if we see the recycling of life, if we see the continuation of life, even if it's not this specific embodiment of self, if we take the ego out of life, we are able to process the scary and the negative things that hold on to us and drag us down and make us feel like we're responsible for suffering, our own and others, and we're able to move through them rather than blindly look away from them as they sit on the side of our lives. We're able to move through them and see what's on the other side of not being so attached to our material things, to the material validation, that external validation or that external purpose. We're able to finally find that internal, because once you process those scary emotions, there's a lot of things that are there waiting to be discovered. You just have to get past that gate. It looks terrifying, or it looks like you shouldn't go through there, but once you open it up, you have every opportunity within to, do what it's endless. I can't even describe what the possibilities are, what the outcome would be, because for each person it's going to be different. For each family line, there's one thing or two or four or five things that have been avoided so strongly, and each generation is tasked with either you sit with these feelings or you become your parents and your grandparents and you avoid them, and you cope with them, and you decide and make decisions based on those coping mechanisms instead of based on the openness to feel everything that comes your way. So I don't know, I think I just wanted to verbalize, maybe for me and for others, that if you are tasked with strong feelings, it's not always necessarily a disorder or something that's wrong with you. A safe space will really, really help, and it's something you can create for yourself. Also, that's something your time could go towards, is a safe space physically and mentally, so that you can process these things instead of continue running from them, and instead of continuing to try to cope with them. It's so strong because it wants to be felt, it wants to be heard, and just writing it down and then deciding, what, I don't even feel that way, it still helps it get out of your heart, and now there's space for the way you really do wish to feel about life, and indigenous wisdom that can teach you about life and teach you about spiritual purpose and spiritual value rather than the material purpose and material value. It's just a shift in consciousness that we don't have to keep running from all of these things that we're afraid of, or these questions we're afraid of asking. We can actually ask them and see what happens if an answer presents itself, or if it doesn't. That's something that we're supposed to do with each other as a collective community, is experience these things instead of just keep coping together and getting together and getting drunk and not talking about the things that we're terrified of, having this barrier within ourselves and within the collective. Your interactions with the outside world is a reflection of your interactions with yourself. So if you can't be vulnerable with anyone in your life, it's likely a reflection of how non-vulnerable you are with yourself. And start small. It's not like you have to jump off the deep end. I'm not encouraging anyone to go and sit in squalor for like months on end. This is not encouraging depressive episodes, though they might come. Nothing's wrong with that. Like, you can still survive that. You can still move through a depressive episode. You can still move through a panic episode. You can move through anything if we start showing up for ourselves and for our community, and recognizing that we all have deep pain, and even especially our enemies or our parents who didn't treat us quite well. They only treated us the ways they did because they were unable, they didn't have the safe space to process these emotions, so they were passed on to us. It's not about vengeance or justice. It's about being mature enough to do it for ourselves and for the future generations, so that as they come into the world, we're not passing our trauma vicariously onto them because we're too afraid to sit with it. And knowing that if it doesn't feel good to believe something like how, you know, death is just being put into the ground, or God is unfair because he makes people sick, if that doesn't feel good to believe, we have to change what we believe. You have to write down what it is you think is true, and then what you would like to replace it with, and then actively work on replacing it. Because again, the thing about the mind is that half of it as a human is going to be animalistic, so it's going to fall into habit every time. If you're not actively working against habit, you're gonna end up 50 years old wondering, how did I get here? You got there because you avoided the things that were trying to steer you in a more liberated direction. Liberation is crying when you're sad. Liberation is admitting that you feel low and you need a break, giving yourself space and time to rest. Or I don't know, I can't put words to it because it's going to be different for each person, but I think every person, if they hear this, is going to know exactly what it is that they might have avoided in the past and how they could possibly make space for it in the future. Now, again, I'm very privileged in the fact that I have a safe space. I have a partner who makes space for my feelings and kind of rescues me when I am in the deep end and I am feeling too strongly. But either way, now, next time I'm feeling something so strongly, instead of thinking that something is wrong with me and that I need to harm myself, or I want to no longer live this life, or anything along those lines, I can see it as an opportunity to feel the feelings, just give in to the emotions and grieve them in order to get rid of them, in order to, it's like damming up a river, and down here there's some sort of boulder that is stopping the flow of the essence of my life. I'm damming it here because the emotions come in and I won't let them reach my heart, so I drink instead, or I do something that makes me feel like I'm relieved of the idea. But instead, if I take the dam out and the water is able to flow, it will push that boulder out. The emotions will be processed and the obstacles will be removed. And therefore, if I never remove this dam, I will never know what it is to have that alleviation in my heart. But until we remove that dam, we will continue to feel this like we're barely head above water of, I'm just making it by. Oh, you know, it's just another day. You hear it in our language, the way we talk to each other. Do what you can to remove that dam for yourself, for the future generations, and for the previous generations that didn't have the opportunity. They were too busy surviving, and we too are surviving in this moment. But I think that our survival has gone from a material survival to a spiritual survival, where we have to let the dam remove itself so that the obstacles can clear away, and know that this pit right here, this pit of fear of death, is not, it doesn't deserve the power that it has over my heart, and it has no actual bearing in being there. When that pit is removed, I am a liberated person, and I am able to go with the flow of life. I am able to feel the channel of energy within me. And this might sound woohoo, but give it a try. You know, it doesn't feel good to have whatever pit it is that sits within you. Try replacing it. Try letting it flow. Just try it out. It's just an exercise. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm right, that's all I'm saying. Thanks.